You're listening to JetNation Radio, the official podcast of JetNation.com, the largest independent fan site in the NFL. Be sure to check out our forums and talk all things Jets with thousands of other diehard Jets fans. Now, to get you up to date on all the latest Jets news, notes, and quotes, here are your hosts, Dylan Tereman and Alex Varallo.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of JetNation Radio. This is your host, Alex Varallo, joined by Dylan Tereman. Dylan, how we doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Not sure if you can smell it over by you, but I smell something, and it smells like a breakout game for Zach Wilson.
Ooh, I like that kind of talk. We're going to break it all down tonight. We're going to dive deep into what happened Sunday with the Jets versus the Buccaneers. We're going to do a recap. We're going to answer some questions that have been burning in the back of our minds. There was some interesting situations that occurred throughout this game that we'll briefly touch into as well. We've got some injury news, and we have some hot topics lined up for tonight, and we're going to get into some talk about what's currently going on. We're going to take a glimpse down the road here, too. We got a little segment that Dylan's put together as well. And then I think the biggest topic of conversation that we're really going to jump into is that 4th and 2 play that pretty much determined the outcome of the Jets' loss, which was 28-24 to the Buccaneers. Would first like to start by thanking our sponsor, Mile Social, for their support. If you want to get involved and get your company a larger social media presence, go to milesocial.com and see what they can do for you. That's milesocial.com. Dylan, so, 28-24 loss. This was probably, in my opinion, one of the best performances that we've seen from Zach Wilson. The Jets maintained a lead for majority of that game, which was completely or highly irregular for what we have seen throughout the course of the year from this team. And you know what? All we really could ask for is to see competitive football and to see a team that's been struggling all year still show some fight near the end. Now, clearly the Jets fell short, and there was some miscommunication at the end of the game that things went awry. But I have to say, I was obviously frustrated with the outcome of the game because it was there for us to take it. But at the end of the day, seeing what Zach Wilson was doing, that gives me some promise and some hope that he is learning and developing, because we were kind of confused and seeing digression earlier in the year. So I'm very, very happy about that. But Dylan, why don't you just kind of give us, your honest opinion on what you thought about how the game developed, and we'll save that 4th and 2 for our hot topic segment. But how did you see it?
Yeah, I think I need to eat a little bit of crow from last week when I said that this game wasn't going to be competitive, because the Jets came out and pretty much smacked Tampa Bay in the mouth early. They had 2 easy opening drives to start the game, get 14 points, and I thought to myself, wow, this offense is actually fun to watch, for the first time in, who knows how long. I thought this was Zach Wilson's best game all season. You could put it up there with the Philly game. I think it's better. His decision-making was largely on point. He was hitting players when they got open, not as the window was closing. He still made some tight window throws to a less than stellar supporting cast, let's say. He was making quick decisions. He didn't let the pressure affect him, at least early on. Second half kind of got away from them as far as pressure. They took a 24-17 lead into the fourth quarter, which, you love to see against the defending Super Bowl champions. There was some pressure in Wilson's face in the second half. Chuma Edoga came in for George Fant, and he let up a pressure and a sack. It was the only sack that the O-line let up all game, so I thought that was really good to see, considering they had, their 4th string left tackle and their backup center in. So huge pieces down on the line, and they were still able to, rally the troops. They had a low snap on the third down late in the fourth quarter, which ended up being a pass to Braxton Berrios, which set up the I guess controversial 4th and 2, we'll say. We'll get into that a little bit later. The run game had 150 yards. You love to see that against the third-ranked run defense in the NFL. There's games where, teams just gave up on the run against Tampa Bay, and the Jets, stuck with it. They hit them early, and then they continued through it and ended up with 150 yards, 5.8 yards per carry. Everybody got involved. Walter had 49 yards. Ty Johnson had 35 yards. Michael Carter ended with 54 yards, but he left early in the first quarter. The Jets were 3 for 4 in the red zone, which you love to see. And then a positive trend here, the Jets were 6 for 11 on third down, so not the usual 3 for 11 they've been the last month or so since Zach Wilson's been back, which they were 4 for 6 in the first half, so they were doing great executing on third down. Wilson ends the day 234 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions, no fumbles, so a fourth game, no interceptions. He had a slew of big-time passes. Like, he had a huge pass to Kenny Yeboah, actually 2 of them, and then he hit Braxton Berrios for the touchdown. He hit Dan Brown on a nice block and release. He had one where he just floated it up over the defender that was coming free on him, and it turned out to be a big gain. He had some screen passes that went for long. The one to Ty Johnson, there was a big block by Elijah Vera-Tucker on that play. So it's nice to see that he's getting back and, picking up right where he left off. And then I think everybody's talking about that Keelan Cole pass down to the 1-yard line, which I was really hoping he'd get in to, pad that stat line a little bit for Zach with 2 touchdowns. But It was a laser over the middle, right over 2 defenders' hands. I thought that was great. And then, our guy Braxton Berrios, all I got to say is pay that man. 2 total touchdowns, back-to-back drives, first Jets receiver with a rush and a receiving touchdown in a game. I believe that's Jets history. So I think he's well-deserved of that contract. And then Kenny Yeboah came up clutch with 2 catches when, all the tight ends were down. Dan Brown got hurt on a little boneheaded hurdle that he tried to do. So Yeboah was the next man up and made some plays. And then on defense, I thought at first it was going to be a long day. Mike Evans was getting open. Rob Gronkowski couldn't be stopped. They were kind of going after Bryce Hall a little bit. It looked like he was going to have, his typical down, not a typical, but, his down game that everybody was expecting early on in the season. But he held tough. They had a pretty good amount of pressure on Brady considering, how, talented their offensive line was. They showed a lot of double A-gap pressures on third down. And they actually got a couple good hits on Brady, too. I think they totaled 4 QB hits. Michael Carter, the second, got his first career sack. And Brandon Echols got an interception right before the half on Tom Brady, which was excellent. And then in the second half, not a tale of 2 halves with the defense, but after the 3rd and 20 conversion by the Buccaneers, it was kind of a done deal. It felt like that the defense was, disheartened to let up a 3rd and 20. They thought they were going to get off the field. And then Tampa Bay goes down and ends up getting some points, and then Jets can't do anything, and Tampa Bay gets the ball back and scores. So an unfortunate ending all around, but a lot of great things to come out of it. Special teams especially, they continue to trend upward. I don't think Pinheiro missed any of his 4 kicks, 3 extra points, and a 51-yarder. Which I don't think we've seen a Jets kicker hit a 50-plus yarder in quite some time where it actually felt good. So although, it's a loss, it's a loss we expected, but this is a game that I don't think anybody would have determined that for 58 minutes the Jets would have dominated Tom Brady and the Buccaneers.
I 100% agree. Great breakdown there. We didn't think we had a dog in the fight. And like you said, when you're the underdog and, you're going in against the former Super Bowl champions, if you want to catch them off guard, like you said, you have to strike first. Cobra Kai style, strike first, strike hard, no mercy. And that's pretty much what the Jets did when they first came out. Those first 2 drives myself to make sure I was watching the right game. I wasn't sure. Usually the game's on CBS. It was on Fox. It was like Twilight Zone. So But any given Sunday, things like that can happen. I was pleasantly surprised as I was, watching this game and seeing how they were maintaining that lead up until that fourth quarter. And then, things slipped away. The Jets were unable to score any points in the fourth quarter. And the Bucs, put down 11. And it was good enough for them to get a 4-point lead. But there's just a few things that I think we have to mention that came out of this game. And this will just be a little bit of fun here. But, man, oh, man, was that crazy watching Antonio Brown give MetLife Stadium his, farewell. Who knows if we're ever going to see this guy come back. I'm surprised it took as long as it did to see these kind of, semantics coming from him. I mean, it's been nothing but, drama with Antonio Brown over the last couple of years. And, it's his story versus the team story. And watching him almost go full Monty on the field was almost a little crazy. But, the Jets dodged a bullet there because he decided to leave the game a little bit earlier than expected. But that did not stop Tom Brady from testing our young defensive backs. Tom distributed the ball with 34 completions on 50 attempts. He hooked up with 10 different receivers. I think you said it right, death by 1,000 cuts. That's what he does. It was just tough. You could see the skill level and the size and the domination of Gronk against some of our guys and Mike Evans kind of outmatching our corners as well. I think our guys, as far as the secondary was concerned, 410 yards let up. That's not anything great to brag about, but, the fact is that we were allowing that to happen. We held their run game to only 62 yards, but we were still in the game, and the game was still ours, up until that critical moment where the Jets could not convert on that fourth down play. A couple other things that, I want to mention here that maybe, fans may know or they did not realize. Denzel Mims had 0 snaps in this game. This is something I want to briefly just talk about, Dylan, because we just recently heard some coach speak the week before about Denzel Mims. The book on Denzel Mims has not been written yet. That's not verbatim from Robert Saleh, but that's more or less what he said. And then the next week he gets 0 snaps in a lost season where this is the best time to try to develop young players. And this young man, got 0 opportunities. So the mystery of what's going on with Denzel Mims and the Jets continues to go on. Dylan, do you have any thoughts about the Mims situation there?
Yeah, it's a tough one because as fans, you obviously want the Jets to, quote, play their best players. And on paper, Denzel Mims has, been a top wide receiver on this depth chart coming into the season, and everybody had such high hopes for him. So, with 1 week left in the season, seeing no snaps and Rob Saleh saying the opportunity to get him on the field didn't present itself, it's not really a glowing endorsement. I know he said his history isn't written yet, but from the outside looking in, it basically looks like the writing's on the wall for him, and he'll probably be on his way out, even though I feel like he hasn't been given, the fair opportunities. But again, if they see something they don't like on a day-to-day basis in that facility from him, then, that's something that we can't comment about or, speculate about because we obviously don't know those things. So you hope he does get a chance this week, and hopefully he can make the most of his opportunities. But in 2022, I don't want to sit here and, keep talking about how he's getting these, benched opportunities and no snaps. It's becoming a very hard talking point because it's just a frustrating one for obviously him, but fans alike.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a complete head scratcher. I didn't even really realize that until late in the game that, he wasn't getting any opportunities because, the Jets were winning this game, and it's like, okay,
right,
when is this going to turn over, and, I was just pleasantly shocked. I've said that before, and I'm still a little bit shocked even, a few days after. But, this game, our players did not come out unscathed. So I'm going to just kind of go right into some of the injury news right now. As we know, Michael Carter started off the game looking really great. 3 carries for 54 yards on the day. He had that 55-yard run, so one of them was a negative play. And then he had 1 solo catch. He acquired 8 snaps on the day before he got a concussion and had to leave. Very, very unfortunate. Like you said, Dan Brown tried to go airborne and made a poor decision, ended up having to leave the game after he hit the ground pretty hard. Also, George Fant had to, leave the game, and Chuma Edoga had to come in. Surprisingly, Edoga held his own with only 1 pressure. I believe, as you mentioned, I think Dan Feeney ended up with a PFF rating over 90. So, surprisingly, the areas in which we anticipated the Jets would struggle, they actually did okay. They haven't been able to run the ball very well. It seems like they've put a focus into doing that now, and over the last few weeks, they've had numerous games where, as a combined total, they've been over 100 yards plus. I think it was around 200 and change last week, 150 this week, so, almost 400 yards rushing within the last couple weeks. And you can clearly see, I'm patting myself on the back here, when the Jets decide to focus on running the ball, controlling the clock, and limiting the turnovers, they find themselves playing competitive football and not, allowing the team to run up the score on you and forcing your hand to just becoming a pass-heavy offense. So I like that change in transition. I've been much more pleased with the game plans that LaFleur has been putting out there. Clearly the Jets have come out not slow to start off the game. They've been coming out, firing the ball out and moving the sticks and ending up with points. This is stuff we did not see in the first half of the season, so this is most definitely progress. Have to mention that Eccles play again. I know one of the guys on the fan had mentioned that it was lame that Eccles had asked for an autograph from Tom Brady on that interception ball. I mean, is it really, really lame to say that you got an interception on probably the game's best quarterback? I mean, is there a better quarterback than Tom Brady? I don't think so. And I'm sure people could debate that, but in my mind, I think he is the best. And, years from now, hopefully Brandon Eccles, when he's a grandpa with all his grandchildren, he'll be telling the story about the time he picked off the Hall of Famer and possibly the greatest of all time, Tom Brady. So I don't find that to be as lame as maybe some of the guys, other people may think, and that was pretty interesting. Lastly here, for our injury news, Bryce Huff is dealing with an ankle injury. Obviously, we talked about Fant with his knee. Jamison Crowder missed this game with a calf injury, so we assume that, he's day-to-day or questionable for this final game against the Bills. So not too much news. I haven't seen anything about transaction wires or pickups. I think we got a tackle or an offensive lineman, like George Sneed or Sennett or something like that. Did you catch that update, Dylan?
Yeah, they claimed a guard. I believe his name was, Greg Sennett or Sennett. I'm not even sure where they claimed him from, but he played 10 games in Dallas last year, and he only took 3 snaps offensively in those 10 games, so he's just a depth emergency player at most. But I think just like 25 minutes before we went live, the Jets tweeted out that they put George Fant, Bryce Huff, and Dan Brown all on the injured reserve. So unfortunately, their injuries are not going to allow them to be on the field for the last game of the season, which is a really tough look for George Fant because he's had a really, really strong season. And, Bryce Huff just couldn't quite stay healthy this year. So it's really tough to see that. But just that came down the wire about 20 minutes before we went live. So I figured you might have missed that one.
Yeah, I was trying to catch up on some of the press conferences, as I normally try to do, and squeeze those in before we go live in case if there's any nuggets out there that we need to speak about. And I'm looking at the tweet right now. I'm going to go ahead and put that one out there.
The Jets also still have 12 total players on COVID-19 reserve list, 3 on the practice squad, and then 9 from the active roster. I'll just read the list down still. Tevin Coleman, Jared Davis, Ryan Griffin, Tyler Croft, Zane Lewis, Elijah Moore, Sherrod Niesman, Kyle Phillips, and Quinnen Williams all still have yet to clear the COVID protocol, so not sure what their statuses are for Sunday, but that'll be something to monitor.
Absolutely. Man, that's unfortunate. I would have liked to have seen a few of those players get the nod for the last
Definitely.
game of the year. I don't think we're going to be playing spoiler or anything like that for the Bills, but they're AFC East rival, and we have to make it rough for them. We have to make it tough. We can't just lay down and give them an easy win going into the playoffs here. Mm-hmm. So we definitely want to see them coming out, firing out on all cylinders. Just going through the notes here, taking a look at some of the defensive players that stood out from this game. C.J. Mosley continues being the man on fire on defense. He ended the day with a total of 13 tackles, which was the team high. Bryce Hall was quite active, and they went his way very, very often in this game. He ended up with 9 total tackles and 2 pass deflections. Tough play near the end of the game, giving up that touchdown to, what was his name, Cyril Grayson.
Yep.
They basically were pulling everybody off the bottom end of the roster from Tampa. We even got to see a couple ex-Jets and Bashad Perriman, who made a couple plays, and also Le'Veon Bell, who apparently scored another 2-point conversion in the same end zone that he did in his, opening game against the Bills that, a couple years ago, which is, I heard that from somebody, and I was like, okay, that's kind of bizarre, but also pretty interesting. Yeah. So I wasn't sure if, they were going to try to feature Bell to, kind of stick it to us a little bit. But, he did go out there. He had a few touches. He had a few catches. Not a huge impact. But, he was pretty excited when he got to score that 2-point conversion. So, yeah, a little bit of our past coming to see us. But, Carter, as you mentioned, I think he played a really good game. First career sack. Quincy Williams was all over the field. Folorunso Fadukasi, good to see him coming back and making some plays behind the line of scrimmage. I definitely feel that, the time that he missed, this Jets defense, was hurting significantly as far as creating that pressure up the middle. And seeing him back in there was definitely good. Just taking a quick look to see if I missed anybody. We mentioned Pinheiro. He's one of my new favorite players because this guy seems to be lights out, unlike some of the previous kickers that we have. And, okay, Dylan, I think we're going to have to start migrating over into our hot topics for the evening. And, so where should we start? Should we just basically start with how we feel about that fourth quarter situation and that 4th and 2 play? I have it written down here.
Yeah, let's get right into it.
Did LaFleur and Saleh make the right call? Should they have taken the points is what my notes are written here. So, Dylan, I'm going to throw it your way. How did you feel about that particular scenario? Did you like the call to go forward on 4th and 2? Do you think the Jets should have taken the points? And, how did you feel about the outcome?
So I love the decision to go for it. I don't know if it was the quote-unquote right call because obviously it failed, and I think that's a little bit, blame to be spread around there. But I think it was the correct decision to go for it. I don't think settling for a field goal would have really made a difference. I think, if anything, all that would have done was possibly ensure overtime versus Tom Brady, which in that scenario, if he gets the ball first, the game's most likely over anyway. So I think the decision to go for it was the correct one, and to take the field goal only would have made it 7. So they went down and got the 2-point conversion anyway. So I think regardless if we kicked the field goal or not, that was the correct decision to at least try for it.
Yeah, you know what? At the time, I was screaming, take the points, take the points, take the points. And obviously, at that point in time, I was frustrated because they didn't. And then the call looked very, very bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
At that point in time, I was unaware of, the situation with the communication. We came to find out in the press conference that there was a communication breakdown in the huddle, delivering the play to Zach Wilson. I guess, off the playbook, that particular play is an option where the quarterback in a short yardage situation can sneak it, or, on the jet sweep or the end around, whatever it was called, to Braxton Berrios was the play. And they wanted the ball to be in Berrios' hands. He's been the hottest player on the offense over the last month. He was rolling hot that day particularly as well. And, if he does get the ball, I think that's an easy first down, and I think that's possibly a touchdown, which seals the game as well. So this is one of those scenarios. Had it worked, great call, great decision. The fact that it didn't now leaves the discussion of, what are these guys doing over there? Why did they do that? You're giving the ball back to Tom Brady, with a few minutes left on the clock, and obviously we know how we've seen that movie so many times with Tom Brady.
Right. Yeah.
It's a little crazy to think that he wouldn't have scored in that scenario. He ends up leading this phenomenal. I think it was an 8 or 9 play drive, and seals the game on us. So very, very frustrating. At the point in time, I was saying take the points because it's almost automatic that Tom Brady will go down the field and score. But I understand, let's not try to win the game in overtime, because like you said, if Tampa gets the ball, you might as well just, turn out the lights and warm up the car and get ready to go home. But you convert there, you run the clock, you possibly score, and then it is our game, and it's pretty much sealed at that point. So I do understand being aggressive. People say, you're 4-11, what do you got to lose at this point? Why not go for it in that situation? So I understand that as well. While I was watching the game, I was just saying, just take the points here. Just take the points here and live to fight another day. But, clearly that's not the way that this played out. And, now there were some sentences that came out of the press conference from Robert Saleh that people have been dissecting and trying to dive deep in and find inner meaning on. And, he did say, the coaching staff, which I believe is himself included, needed to do a better job communicating and being better in that particular situation. Did you at all feel like Saleh was, more or less throwing Zach Wilson or Mike LaFleur under the bus in that scenario?
I don't know if I would necessarily classify it as throwing them under the bus. I think, if anything, he was more trying to put the blame on the communication so that the media themselves didn't necessarily go out and attack Zach Wilson for a decision that ultimately he made because he decided to keep it on the option play. But at the same time, I think, Rob Saleh has to say those types of things because the coaching is what's going to be the first, line of defense when it comes to the media and their questioning. They always have to protect the players. So I think some of the blame is owed on Mike LaFleur. Some of the blame is owed on Zach Wilson. But no, I don't think I'd say Saleh necessarily threw them under the bus because at the end of the day, he has the ultimate decision, but he also has to be the one to fall on the sword at the end when, Rich Cimini and Brian Costello come with their questions. So it's always a tough situation, but I think he tried to handle it the best way he could.
Yeah, he definitely seemed rather emotional and agitated, and the guys on the beat just kept asking the same question over and over in different ways, and I understand how frustrating that can be, and giving the same response and end result. So that's definitely frustrating. And, Bart Scott kind of made an alarming call, and, it's funny how, we love him and then we despise him and we hate him. And I don't think Bart Scott has a lot of fans this week with some of the comments that he made about our quarterback. More or less what he had said is that the fact that Zach Wilson decided to keep the ball and not hand it off to his best offensive player reflects his character, more or less. And that was a selfish call that Wilson had made. And there was a particular thing that he had said. He's a me guy, or, this is kind of like what the character flaws that Zach Wilson has is more or less that he was saying, which I found pretty interesting. I don't perceive that kind of mentality with Zach Wilson. All these young kids think they're superstars, so they all have egos. That's 100%. But I don't feel like Zach Wilson was trying to be selfish in that play. Like, I saved the game. Everybody come praise me now. I just think that he hasn't been in that situation all year. He obviously is one of the most important players on the offense, and a lot that he does determines on whether or not we win or lose games. And in that particular scenario, Dylan, you were looking at the lineup and how how Tampa was lining up in that particular scenario, and the A-gap did present himself. I think in a 4th and inches situation, that's not a bad call. But being, 4th and 2, I mean, those are some long yards, 2 yards, larger than it sounds when you say it. And the kid made a mistake. That's all that we can really say about this one. And this is probably going to be something that he's going to learn from. And this will be something that I think the coaching staff is going to have to learn from. We really, really need to make sure that in a situation like that, when you have all your timeouts to your favor, that you get the play right and that everybody's on the same page. So, we can chalk that one up to coaching. We can chalk that one up to a rookie making a mistake, and we've anticipated plenty of those this year, and we've seen plenty of those. So not surprising that, the Jets find a way not to finish the game here. And, but to say selfish and things like that, I don't think that's the case. I think everyone's kicking themselves, the coaching staff and the players in that situation, knowing that they had the game in their hands and it slipped right through. Not to mention the defense was unable to stand their ground, and they let up some big plays at the end as well. So it was a collective, loss is the way that I'm seeing it. And, I really can't get too upset, with them. They tried to be aggressive. That's what they tried to do. It didn't work out. And, things unraveled at the end, which is unfortunate. But to say he's selfish, I really, really can't get down with that. And I wholeheartedly disagree with Bart Scott's take on that. But, that's what these guys do. They have their takes. They put these comments out there, and then we take them, and you either accept it, you like it, you hate it, or you dislike it, or perhaps you even agree. And there may be people that, disagree with the way that this game unfolded, and maybe they're still a little sore about it. Completely possible. But I have to say that Zach Wilson's play over this last month has been absolutely phenomenal. He went into another game without a turnover. I mean, we were talking about a player who had 9 interceptions in his first 5 games, and now, what is he on, 7 games now? In these last 7 games, he's had 2 interceptions, and I don't think he's had any in the last 2 or 3 games. So that, to me, is progress, and that's exactly what I wanted. Yes, he hasn't thrown interceptions since the Philadelphia game, which was another one of his better games that he had this season. And, that's 4 games in a row without a turnover. So I'm completely fine with the way that the young man is playing. And if we were to take anything from this, I think we have to say that he was doing this with practice squad guys and fourth string and third string guys and, guys that we were getting from the scrap heap. Imagine, with a healthy, strong offensive line and Corey Davis and a healthy Elijah Moore in the mix, that gives me, some excitement. And I don't know how you feel about that, or, if you want to chime in here, Dylan, and, just, give your point of view on Zach's play over the last few weeks, go for it.
Yeah, first, I think Bart Scott using the word selfish to describe how the ending of that game happened was pretty off base. I'm not going to say I've listened to every single Zach Wilson press conference that he's put out, but I've listened to some even before he was drafted at BYU, Sports Nation, and he's always handled the media super, respectfully, and he's never, shown that he's able to, you can get under his skin. He's always been very even keel. So I think the word selfish was pretty off base. I think he could use the word boneheaded, and it would fit better. I still don't think it would be accurate, but I think the word selfish was just so far from what I expected, especially from people that, ex-Jets that are talking on a Jets platform to say. I really didn't think that was the proper choice of words. He's a young kid. He was presented with an option play. He saw the look. We talked about it last week that a lot of these play calls in the Mike LaFleur system are based off look, whether it's full field, half field, defensive line, safety shell, everything comes into play. And this is exactly right up that alley. It's a short yardage call based off look. And Zach Wilson got the look. His exact quote was, "I got the play call, liked it. It had two different options. I had an open A gap, but unfortunately came up short." He said he feels like he did what was necessary to do, and that it's always easy to say if he hands it off, it's a first down. But then if Barrios gets stuffed, it's like, why didn't you take the A gap? So it's very clear that Zach Wilson is not going to let the media's perception of the ending of that game take away from the fact that he balled out and for 58 minutes pretty much carried a practice squad team against the Super Bowl champions. So, yeah, selfish is not the right word. And as far as Zach goes, the past month, everything has just been trending upward in the right direction. I'm not going to say everything's perfect, but he's definitely playing better within the offense. He's not making the mistakes like you talked about. Since the Philadelphia game, which was 5 games ago, he has 934 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, only 1 interception. And then he has a bunch of rushing yards as well. He has about 150 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns as well. So 7 total touchdowns to 1 interception and 1 fumble. I'll take that for the last 5 games of his rookie season, coming off an injury on a team that was absolutely depleted of, talent all across the board. So, yeah, I think he's performing well. Probably one of the best rookies down the stretch. Mac Jones obviously has been playing well all season, and Davis Mills has had his, spurts with 300-yard games. But I think Zach Wilson this past month, a little bit more than a month, has been the most consistent rookie quarterback as of date.
Definitely. All right, so we've gone through some of the hot topics here, and Dylan, we're going to migrate to the segment that you put together here, and this is making a case for the Jets to coach the Senior Bowl. I know this is something that's been burning on your mind, so I am going to throw the ball to you, my man, and please, this is the Dylan segment of the Jets should be coaching the Senior Bowl. Go for it.
I really wish I kept some kind of receipt, like a screenshot of me saying, whether on Twitter or even in a text message conversation, that my expectation was for the Jets to be in contention to coach the Senior Bowl. And, unfortunately, it's here and, we're living it, but we have to make the most of it. So I put together a small list of things, and I even tweeted it at Jim Nagy. So he actually liked one of the comments on the tweet, so I'm glad that he was able to see it. But I compiled a little list of things that I did a little bit of research, and according to Rich Cimini, the Jets haven't coached the Senior Bowl since 1979. Coincidentally, that's where they found Mark Gastineau. Everybody knows how that went down. He's a Jets legend. So I think, over, 42 years of not coaching the Senior Bowl, I think that alone, should put us near the top of the list. We've doubled our win total from last season to this season, and you can laugh because last year we only had 2 wins, but I'll take it. It sounds good on paper. You doubled your wins, so I think that's a good thing for the Jets, going in a positive direction year one under a new coaching staff. They currently own 9 draft picks, including 2 in the first round, which likely will end up in the top 10 based off Seattle's poor play. And we have 4 in the top 40 thanks to Carolina trading us 2, 4, and a 6 for Sam Darnold to go out there and play like Sam Darnold. So the Jets have a ton of draft capital that they could use on these Senior Bowl players to, say, hey, we drafted these guys with our top 40 pick because we went down to Mobile and we worked with them and they were great players, and they might have been third-round projections that end up going in the second round because they create a bond with these players, so you never know. And that brings me into my next point, which part of this coaching staff has been to Mobile back in 2019 with the San Francisco 49ers. They were coming off a really down year, and they ended up going to the Senior Bowl. They worked with Trevon Wesco. They've talked about that numerous times in press conferences. LaFleur has. And then they ended up going from Senior Bowl to Super Bowl. And I'm not saying the Jets should follow that direct path, but if they can do it, it's not impossible. So I think that's a good step. And then if you look at the teams in front of us, it's the Lions, the Jaguars, and the Texans. The Lions went in 2020, so 2 years ago under Matt Patricia, and I believe that was the year they fired Matt Patricia 3/4 of the way through the season, so not a good look there. The Jaguars are ineligible because they are not retaining their head coach, and that's one of the minimum requirements. So them firing Urban eliminates them from contention. And then the Texans did it back in 2018 against the Broncos. And generally, the Senior Bowl has been, a recent history, an AFC and an NFC team. But you go back to 2018, and it was 2 AFC teams, one being the Texans. So I think the fact that they've done it in the past 5 years alone, and for the Lions 2 years ago, I think that should, propel the Jets up the board, and they should be sitting in one of the top spots to be able to go down to Mobile, coach the Senior Bowl, and really get a hands-on look at this draft class because, the Jets, they need it essentially. The draft class has looked good for 2021. Obviously, pieces of it looked good for 2020. And you can chalk it up to however you like, Joe Douglas making bad picks or him just following the coaching staff that's no longer in place. So you can place the blame wherever when it comes to that. But the Jets have draft picks, and so far it seems like they have a competent group of people that can make use of these draft picks. So I think the Senior Bowl should be, something that the Jets could take extreme advantage of.
And I wholeheartedly agree. I think it's our time to do so. And I think that, the NFL has got to start pulling for the Jets here. I think sports is always better when New York is involved. And I'm biased because I'm, grew up in Jersey and I currently live in New York. But tell me a situation where if a New York team is not involved, whether it's hockey with the Islanders or the Rangers, people are all excited. Feeney and company were over there busting beers over their head. It was just fun. I don't even watch hockey, but I'm paying attention because the Jets are involved and New York's involved. And, the Rangers are a good team this year. And, my dad likes hockey too. And like I said, I'm not a big hockey guy. I got him a Ranger hat for Christmas this year because that's a team that he feels is going to be relevant. And, when the Knicks or, when the Nets are relevant, I'm watching hoops, and I'm not really a hoops guy either. So, it's time to get these New York teams involved because the Jets have stunk, the Giants stink. Buffalo Bills are the best New York team, but people still don't even recognize them as a New York team. I can't tell you how many people forget that New York has 3 football teams because people just think Buffalo's like in Canada or something.
Right.
I get it. You could throw a rock to the border, but I was even goofed that question years ago as a kid, and I was adamant that there was only 2 New York teams, and when they broke the news to me about Buffalo, I felt pretty dumb. But it's time to get New York involved. I think we should be one of the top teams that should be invited to coach that game, and yes, it obviously gives the Jets a little bit of an edge to get a hands-on look at some of these players. And, not a lot of people tune into those games, but I'm sure if the Jets are involved, you'll see a much higher attendance rating with views than probably recent years because the New York market is that big. So,
right.
I'm seeing mock drafts coming out left and right over the last 24 hours. I've yet to do one myself. I'm holding out as long as I possibly can.
Me too,
because
man.
I know that we have an entire off season to do this thing, and it ends up becoming one of those things to where I have to do a mock draft before I go to bed. So I'm dreaming of about new football players playing for the Jets here. So don't want to run myself ragged too early with the off season and draft
you can
talk,
get burnt out.
We will get there eventually. And we could talk ball for days. That's one thing that I know you and I can do, but we don't want to bore the listeners every week talking about Joe Hutchinson from Iowa State or whomever. I just made that up, so don't go look that guy up. But Dylan, I'm taking a look at the clock here. We've got about 13 and a half minutes, so let's do a little preview for the Jets' final season of the game. Man, that kind of hit right in the chest a little bit, saying the final year. I mean, we were getting to the point to where people were doing the just end the season, after loss after loss and tough week after tough week. And now the Jets are finally starting to look like a balanced football team somewhat. And we only get one more game to see of our team. So we are near the end. And that is a little sad, but, that's what happens. Clearly the Jets need to do better so that we're talking about, who we're going to be playing on, Wild Card Saturday or whatever that, weekend is called or, I think one day we will. It's just not going to be anytime soon, or at least not, in 2022. So AFC East rival and the number one team in the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills coming up. The Bills kind of went through a little bit of a stint. They weren't playing very well. They had a stinker and lost to Jacksonville the week before us, and then they kind of got their stuff together and whooped our tail. They looked really good against a bad Atlanta team last week. I shared a tweet with you about Devin Singletary running for over, 100-something yards, and he had a couple scores. So the Jets are going to have their hands full. I think you said it. They're going up against a run-heavy team with a defense that hasn't been playing well against the run, with exception to the 62 yards against the Bucs last week. So how do you feel about, this game here? I don't foresee us winning this game. But now, after seeing this last game, I do feel that we may be a little bit more competitive than we think.
Yeah, I agree. And first off, I think the coolest part about this game, obviously there's an extra game onto the season, which I think makes this feat a little bit harder. But the Jets have a small chance to go and be part of history entering this game. They have 3 rookies that are leading in the 3 major offensive categories. Zach Wilson is the passing leader with 2,247 yards, which is 1,300 more than Mike White, so he's clearly going to get that. Michael Carter is the leading rusher with 620 yards, and the next highest is Tevin Coleman, so he's going to get that. And then Elijah Moore, his status for Sunday is still up in the air, but he has 538 receiving yards, which is the most on the team. And Berrios and Crowder have the next highest at 431. So either one of Berrios and Crowder, if Crowder plays, would need 107 yards to pass Elijah Moore. And if they don't, then those 3 rookies will be the first 3 rookies to lead in all offensive categories since the 68 Bills and the 2012 Browns. So they'd only be the third, group of rookies in history to ever do that. So I think that's really cool. that they have an opportunity to do that, given all of the, the negativity and the downs of this year. I think it'd be cool to end on a positive. And I also think that's more ammo to say, hey, Joe Douglas does a good job drafting. Let's get these, young kids into the Senior Bowl and, this young coaching staff on, looking at these draft prospects. But going back into the game with the Bills, the first thing I had to write down was that they moved the game time from 1 to 4:25.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how most fans feel about that, but I absolutely hate it when the Jets play at 4:25. I get so invested in the 1 o'clock games that I forget that, our inactives come out, and the next thing you know, the Jets are about to kick off, and I'm like, oh no, I didn't prepare myself. I don't like that it's 4:25, but the Bills do have a chance to clinch the AFC East, and that's why they flexed the game so that, the Bills have more of a prime time slot. The Bills are 10-6 overall on the season, following a 29-15 win over the Falcons. And it didn't look all that great against the Falcons. I believe they were playing in the snow, so I'm not sure how much of the elements had to do with it. But Atlanta hung around for a little bit. You mentioned it, though. Devin Singletary popped, and he had 110 yards and 2 scores. I think Josh Allen had a rushing score or 2 as well. So this is a very physically, dominant team in the trenches. They love to run the ball, even with Josh Allen. So being a bottom 3, bottom 5 team against the run this year, despite having a good game against the Bucs, is not a good recipe for the Jets to win this. Joe Douglas, still winless in the AFC East, 0-11, still looking for that first victory. And then I took down a couple stats about the Bills team. We pretty much know the roster with Allen, Singletary, Diggs. I believe Emmanuel Sanders is a little hurt. He might not even play. Mm-hmm. But they're loaded with talent on both sides of the ball. So they're first in total defense, first in pass defense, 19th in run defense. They're 5th in total offense, 10th in passing, 6th in rushing. So both sides of the ball, they're absolute machines. And then I looked at third down conversion rate because that's the area that the Jets seem to struggle, in my opinion. And they are 4th in offense on converting. They convert at a 46.6% rate, which is, really good. And they're 2nd defense, allowing a conversion rate of only 32.5. And then you compare that to the Jets, where they're 20th on offense, converting at about 38%, and 29th on defense. So a lot of the formulas don't really go in the way of the Jets. I still think, like you said, they have a chance to be competitive, especially after last week going against a superior team and, showing that grit for, let's say, 58.5 minutes. So I think if we can, copy and paste that effort and that collective team, collective team effort, I think that this will be a close game. I obviously don't think the Jets will win, but if we win, the Patriots win the AFC East. If we lose, the Bills win the AFC East. Kind of a double-edged sword. I'd still rather win, go out on top, and, kind of play spoiler to the Bills draft seeding or playoff seeding.
Oh, absolutely. And, I was going through some of the injury news for their team. That their list is not as extensive, and it's a little bit harder to find, or at least for me, for tonight's show. But they did have a couple injuries. It looks like Ryan Bates, their offensive guard, is dealing with a knee injury, so he's questionable going into the game. They do have so it doesn't look like they're going to be completely banged up. I guess what we kind of have to hope for is that the Bills kind of come into this game a little bit half asleep the way that the Bucs did, and we kind of surprise them a little bit early and keep them on their heels. Kind of the same kind of recipe that you had against the Bucs. Just try to get an early advantage if at all possible. I'm not really too sure, how we match up. It doesn't look very, very favorable for us, but none of these recent games have, and the Jets have been playing surprisingly better than anticipated. So I guess we can assume that may happen again. I still feel that the Jets will fall short, but, at this point, like you said, go in there, compete, fight, whatever you got to do, scrap. The Jets had only 2 penalties last week which is, like, remarkable. I think we average, like, 6 to 8 penalties a game, so the fact that they're cleaning up that aspect of their play as well, that's really, really solid. So, you know, try to go in there and you know, pitch a perfect game. You know, Zach Wilson, I really would like to see him go into this game and finish the season without any turnovers in his last few games. I think that would be very, very positive for not only the fan base, but for himself, you know, being able to, you know, flip the script, per se, on his first half of the season compared to the second half. You know, I want to see them continue to attempt to run the ball as much as they can. You know, you brought up some good stats there and rankings. The Bills are a solid team on both sides of the ball. So they're really going to have their hands full. But I would like to see them spread the ball around. I would like to see Denzel Mims play, but, you know, according to last week, I don't know if that's going to happen. So we will be monitoring if number 11 gets any opportunities. This is just going to be one of those things. And I'm a big Denzel Mims fan, have been since the draft, and, you know, it almost feels like, why me? You know, but it's really not me. It's more him than anything. So that's just my ego. But I would definitely like to see them, you know, incorporate as many players as they can, and, you know, those quick decisions that we've been seeing from Wilson, not holding on the ball too long, continue that process with that mental clock in your head. Definitely need to see that, because the Bills will pin their ears back and dial up the pressure as well. And obviously come out of this game as healthy as possible. Really don't want to see any alarming, you know, injury news, you know, in our final game. So go in there, compete, you know, ball out. I would like to see someone emerge, you know, and do something that we haven't seen. You know, maybe Elijah Moore gets healthy and comes out and has a game, or maybe we finally see something from Keelan Cole, or Braxton Berrios continues his hot streak and maybe he finds the end zone again for the third week in a row. That would be very cool. But yeah, you know, this is a good test. It's a good final test. As the Bills have, you know, good tight end and Dawson Knox, and they have Cole Beasley, who's a good vet. They've got Diggs, who's a good player. And then Gabriel Davis has been running hot. So, you know, Echols and Hall, Ashton Davis, you know, these guys are really going to have to play solid football, not to let up big explosive plays. And I know that's something that Bryce Hall had mentioned in his short press conference after the game. You know, got to do better on letting up big plays and those big explosive plays. So, you know, hopefully the Jets are able to clean up some of those little mistakes that they made from the previous week. Dylan, it's flown by. That's an hour right there. We're at the 1 minute mark here, and we're coming down to the wire. But yeah, you know what I'd really like to see? I really would like to see some more of those tight window throws, because, man, Zach was really slinging it at certain points in those games.
Oh, yeah.
That little sidearm throw that he made to Berrios over the middle, and throwing a dot to Yeboah with three defenders in the vicinity. You know, those are the plays that we saw from BYU in that 2020 season that we were not seeing in the beginning of the year. And now that we're starting to see a little bit of that, you know, you can't help but get excited. I'm hoping it's not, and I'm going to go back into our past here. I remember this game that Sam Darnold had against Aaron Rodgers, and we ended up losing the game, but he played one heck of a game, and he had a QBR over 100, and everybody hung their hat. I'm kind of hoping it's not one of those scenarios where it was just kind of a fluke. So this week will definitely be an opportunity for Wilson and company to say last week wasn't a fluke. And it just wasn't that, you know, we were lucky going against Tom Brady, the GOAT, and the former Super Bowl champion Bucs, and just caught them off guard. I'd very much like to see the same outcome against the Bills. But yeah, any last thoughts before we wrap up on the show for this week, Dylan?
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to see them, I guess, lay down against the Bills and, you know, start planning their vacations a week early. I really want to see them come out strong, maybe a little bit of fires, burning under them from what happened in the Bucs loss, and they carry that aggression and momentum with them into this game, and they can still come out hot, because the last thing I want to see is, Josh Allen and the Bills roll all over us for, a 37-10 type, loss. That's just the sour taste going into the offseason you don't want. So definitely continue on this positive upswing that Zach Wilson and the offense are taking, and hopefully, we'll put up some points this week.
Absolutely. And, I was curious because I was looking at C.J. Mosley's numbers, so this will be the last egg of the night here. But for those of you who do not know, C.J. Mosley is currently with 155 total tackles this year, and currently 5th overall with all the linebackers in the league, or possibly defensive players in the league, with 155 total tackles. So I guess, you'd have to anticipate that Mosley's probably going to have another double-digit performance, and maybe he cracks the top 3 as far as defensive players and linebackers are concerned this year. So another
he's
thing
also
that,
actually,
we should be looking at.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I had this in my notes and I forgot to mention it. He's second most tackles in Jets history behind Jonathan Velma. He needs 18 total tackles to break the record, so I'm not quite sure he'll do that. He'd really have to, be everywhere on the field, but he'll come close to breaking it, and I think, anybody that thinks C.J. Mosley's paid too much, I think at this point we could put that to bed, and he's worth every dollar that the Jets have paid him from a locker room standpoint and from the on-field standpoint.
Absolutely. You asked me earlier in the season when the Jets were stinking it up. I would say that the Jets need to walk away from that contract in 2022 season. But now, kind of looking at this scenario here, I don't know if they can, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he did miss a game this year. I just wanted to do a quick count on how many games
he would have had it
competed in.
If he played all 18 games, he would have made it.
Yeah, for sure. And that also kind of shows you on how awesome Vilma was, because now we're in, a 17-game schedule rather than a 16-game schedule. And Vilma still has the lead on him with a missed game in a 16-game season. So, yeah, Vilma was a lot of fun to watch when, he was leading our defense way back when I was I wonder if I was still in high school then. Who knows? But, Dylan,
I was
show,
10.
Good week. Yeah, we were pretty young, so who knows? If you were 10, then, yeah, I definitely was probably out of high school at that time causing some mischief. But, yeah, we got one more show before the end of the season, and, we'll cover the Bucs. We'll probably do – I don't know how we're going to do this. We're going to have to try to reach out to Glenn and maybe try to do, like, an end-of-season review, and maybe we could get a little roundtable discussion with the three of us together just to talk about,
definitely,
we go through the weeks and, we can each kind of give our takes on the first, second, third, and fourth quarter of the season. And, we'll talk about, players that the Jets should target to sign or re-sign for next season. And then obviously we're going to have to, kickstart the off-season conversation, which going to be a long stretch before we get to April, but we got to do it. So everybody, thank you for tuning in to another episode of JetNation Radio. Please don't forget to go to JetNation.com. You have to check out our forums, #1 fan forum in the NFL. Download the app. Check out our YouTube scene. Got a lot of stuff going on over there as well. So please do not miss out. This is Alex Varallo signing off for Dylan Tereman. Thank you, everybody. Good luck. And as usual, let's go Jets.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at JetNation Radio. Glenn is at AceFan23, and Alex is at NYJetsLife24.
Until next time,
go Jets!